Hi everybody, I'm Paul Pisces, the author of Desperately Seeking Sex and Sobriety, which is behind me, which is a story of my descent into alcoholism. And this video is about how I managed to recover from alcoholism after 30 years of drinking alcoholically. So if you want to know the background, then you could read my book, which is available on Amazon. But what the book doesn't tell you is how I finally managed to recover from alcoholism. Which happened when I was of the grand old age of 50 years old. I'm now 63. Now, towards the end of my drinking career, I'd already had a physical breakdown. And then when I was 49, I started having physical and mental breakdown, which caused me to become suicidal for a considerable period of time. And I also spent time in 3 different mental hospitals because I committed myself to the mental hospital as a place of safety, as I was, as I said, suicidal. Unfortunately, the mental hospitals didn't really help, and finally I had to call my father, and he sent my brothers over to get me and to take me back to England and put me in a rehab where I stayed for 28 days, 4 weeks. And it was a 12-step rehab. And I knew when I went into the rehab, I mean, I'd lost my job. I was on the brink of losing my home where I lived. I was in financial dire straits. My father had to pay for the rehab on his credit card because I had no resources, and I knew I was there, and if I couldn't stop drinking with the help of the rehab, then I was likely to end up either in an institution or dead. So I knew the stakes were pretty high, and I remember being in the rehab, and I was absolutely full of fear. There were waves of fear going through my body because I really couldn't see that it was possible to resurrect my life at the age of 50 when I was in such dire straits. But some miracles happened. First of all, I'd been going to Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, for a considerable period of time, probably 2 years prior to my complete breakdown. But unfortunately I didn't quite get the message, and I could stop drinking for a month or 40 days, and then I would go back to the relapse, go back to the alcohol, because I was in such a state of fear. And in the rehab, obviously the first thing I had to do was go into withdrawal, which took about a week before I started to feel normal, or at least functioning. And after that period, I mean, I was in a very good group of people who were in the same position as me, although the interesting thing about them was they were trying to save their relationships, either their wives or their girlfriends. Whereas I knew that wasn't what I was there for. I was in there to try and save my life. So, and you know, as the weeks passed, I gradually got the message of the 12-step program, which is part of Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. And I realised that I had to find a way just not to take that first drink, that there was no point in me considering managing my alcohol consumption anymore, which is what I tried to do for years. I had to just stop. And I wasn't entirely sure that was possible, but I knew I had to try it. And what I had to do was eventually accept the fact that I couldn't control what was happening in my life, and I had to give it over to my higher power. And as the weeks went by, after 4 weeks, I was functioning. I managed to borrow some money to just tide me over. I also, by some miracle, got a new job, which was extraordinary. So I came back to where I live and put this new don't have a drink into operation, and to trust in my higher power. Now, my higher power had already got me a new job, which was the first miracle. And so I started the new job, and things were pretty stressful. I mean, I've got to admit, I was fairly stressed out. And after about a month, you've guessed it, it was the weekend. I went out and drank again. And it came around to Sunday about midnight, and I realised that I had to stop drinking because I had to go back to work on Monday. So I went to sleep. I woke up Monday morning and I seriously considered not going into work. But fortunately, I just kicked the autopilot on, went into autopilot, got myself ready, went to work, survived the Monday. By about Wednesday, I was feeling a bit better and got through the week, carried on. After another month, I then had another relapse, which fortunately I recovered from. And then I realised that I had to just up my game and become much more careful about where I went, who I was with, what I was doing. And essentially I became much more of a homebody, especially in the evenings. And by this miracle, this second miracle, I then went, and I also was going back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I decided to try for 90 days sober, which would be a world record for me. And I managed to achieve that 90 days, and that 90 days was obviously a lot better than the previous 90 days. So I then said, well, let's do 6 months. I did 6 months. And I was given a 6-month chip by Alcoholics Anonymous. I then thought, well, if I do another 6 months, I'll get a year chip. So I did another 6 months. Then I got my year chip. I qualified to chair the meetings at AA. I did a year chairing a meeting. And then I did 2 more years as the chip master who gives out the chips. Then I was getting up to 3 years sobriety. And actually the cravings had left me by this time. And my life was back in some sort of order. I was still in my job. I was still in my flat. My life was improving. I was going to AA regularly. And I've, since that point, just carried on with that program of recovery, where I go to meetings either virtually or in person. I go to bed early, I get up early, I live a healthy lifestyle, and this has all worked for me. So I think the key takeaway point is Alcoholics Anonymous can really help you, even if you don't like everything about it. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And at the meetings, that's where the people are that can help you. So I do Alcoholics Anonymous. I completely trust in my higher power. I stop trying to run my life. I let my life be run by my higher power. And I may make a video about exactly what my higher power consists of in due course. So the message is that even at 50, after 30 years of alcoholic drinking, it is possible to gain sobriety, long-term sobriety. I've now been sober 13 years. If you want to learn more about my background, then please get hold of my book, Desperately Seeking Sex and Sobriety, available on Amazon, and you'll find out how I got into the terrible mess I was in. But now, fortunately, I'm now living a completely new life, completely sober, and I must admit, I'm actually a lot happier now than I ever was before. So it is possible to overcome alcoholism and addiction if you seek the right help. And I think the right help is either Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. And you could start yourself on a completely new life of sobriety. And so I hope you learned something today from my video, and I wish you all the very best. So take care of yourselves and stay sober and have a good next 24 hours. Thanks a lot. See you. Bye-bye.